So what you're about to see is the first major confrontation from the explosive debate between Mehdi Hasan and Jonathan Conricus, an IDF spokesman. It's a masterclass in how to handle a desperate, bad faith personal smear with an avalanche of undeniable facts. If you're ready to see what pushed him over the edge, show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to make sure you never miss a video. Now let's watch this together, and then I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
Good on the other fronts, and I'm sure that many people in the Hamas, Qatari camps like Mehdi and others aren't happy with the fact that Israel stubbornly, annoyingly is able to withstand the international avalanche of pressure, the pressure campaigns by biased and corrupt UN organizations, this and that new institution or whatever scholars that are lending what's left of their credibility to dubious reports done without due process, with parts of their participants voting without having any possibility for people who think differently to raise their voice, and then having that report as if it's, gospel, descend upon people and picked up and parroted in international media. And I'm sure that many people around the world are frustrated with the fact that we are still here. We still intend to defeat our enemies. And yes, I agree, we are not doing it in the swiftest way, and I would have wanted us to have done it swifter and better. I would have wanted all of our hostages to be back. But to be very clear, if Hamas lay down their weapons, and if we get our hostages back and Hamas is dismantled from governing the Gaza Strip, I have absolutely no doubt that the war would end in that instance, and there would be no Israeli claims or ideas or escapades or anything else that you might quote fringe elements in Israeli society. It wouldn't happen. We would go back to minding our own business.
But hang on.
Which
All
would
right,
be
Jonathan,
to live and to prosper in our homeland.
But hang on a second. The fringe members of society do not normally include the finance minister of the government.
Gaslighting.
Smotrich is the current finance minister of the Israeli government. He's not a fringe member of society.
Well, he represents an electorate, democratically elected, but he represents an electorate which is on the extreme sides of Israeli politics. I perhaps shouldn't belittle and call them fringe, but it is an extreme part of Israeli society. But if you look at what other parts, the majority, if you look at what hundreds of thousands of Israelis, left, right, and center, are out demonstrating and saying is, we want our hostages back, we want the war to end, and the moment we get our hostages back, then the war ends. And another very important thing, which of course Mehdi represented very poorly, was that there is no deal for all of the hostages. The current waiting is for Hamas to say, okay, we agree to hand over all of the hostages. Currently, what we have on the table is 10 live hostages and half of the murdered hostages, and that isn't good enough. We don't want Hamas to have any live hostages that they can have, because that means that the war continues, that means that the suffering will continue, and that is not what we want.
Okay, Mehdi.
I can't believe that, 23 months into this, I'm still having to come on these shows and fact-check this kind of nonsense propaganda from pro-Israel people. As you pointed out,
in a position to fact-check.
They are on the record. Orit Strouk. They are on. Yeah, I can actually fact-check. Let's give some facts. Bezalel Smotrich has said very clearly the hostages are not the priority.
You're not the representative of
the settlements
fact,
minister.
Hassan.
Can I speak without being interrupted?
Let him speak, Jonathan.
You had a chance.
Jonathan, he
you
was
had a chance for your propaganda.
Jonathan,
I didn't interrupt
he
you.
was quiet.
I will interrupt you for the next 20 minutes.
Jonathan, he allowed you to speak without interruption. Let Mehdi do the same.
Fine.
You could come back in and lie again in a moment. I'll give the facts to the viewers. The finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said very clearly that the hostages are not the priority. Ben-Gvir has said a similar line. Orit Strouk, the settlements minister, said recently, we have to go into every area, even if the hostages die, even if they're unsafe, we have to do it. They have made that very clear. Gallant, the former defense minister, said Netanyahu was sacrificing the hostages. The hostages' families went to the homes of the Israeli cabinet just 9 days ago. They protested outside the government's homes and said, you are sacrificing our children on the altar of eternal war. Those are the words of the hostages' families, not the former IDF spokesman, Piers, who you brought on to lie on behalf of the Israeli military. So many lies he told there in that statement that he just gave this long rant. He doesn't want me to speak now, obviously, because the fact checks will hurt him. Again and again, they have said the hostages are not the priority. And this idea of fringe figures, as you said, Piers, Bezalel Smotrich is the finance minister. He said in May of this year, we are disassembling Gaza. We are turning it into piles of rubble. We are destroying the Gaza Strip. We are there to conquer cleanse and remain. Those are the words of Smotrich. By the way, on the same day, Piers, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, put out a tweet saying, Bezalel, you have spoken the truth. You show leadership. So this is the entire government. It's not just the entire government. It's the country. A majority of Israelis say they want Palestinians expelled from the Gaza Strip, according to every poll. This is not a fringe view. This is the Israeli government. This is Israeli society. And for Jonathan to say, I'm in the Hamas camp, come on, Jonathan, get some new lines. I'm not in the Hamas camp. I've never defended Hamas on this show once. Piers knows that. Although you come on this show to defend an Israeli military you were part of and spokesman for. You were part of an Israeli military that's being investigated at the ICJ for genocide. You're part of an Israeli military that was indicted at the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. You're part of an Israeli military that the International Association of Genocide Scholars have said is a genocide. You're part of a military. You're part of a military that's being investigated by international courts. You're part of a military.
Well, I think, okay, hang on. Let me jump in.
No, hold on, I'm finishing my point, Piers.
Jonathan, let him finish and I'll come to you.
You're part of a military that has been investigated for sexual violence and rape against Palestinians. Did that happen on your watch? Did you sign off on what the UN says is sexual and gender-based violence?
Let me ask Jonathan a question. Okay, Jonathan.
A military that bombed a hospital last week, Jonathan.
Okay,
your military bombed a hospital.
Let me ask Jonathan an IDF question.
Bombed a hospital.
Let me ask Jonathan.
Only a sociopath would defend that.
All right, let me ask Jonathan a question, which is, as a former IDF man and spokesman, it is reported that behind the closed-door overnight meeting, IDF's Chief of Staff, Major General Ayal Zamir, vehemently opposed a Gaza City takeover, which he has repeatedly warned would endanger the lives of his soldiers and the remaining hostages held by Hamas. That was the Times of Israel reporting that. Are you not concerned as a former IDF man that the guy who's the Chief of Staff of the IDF right now thinks this is a disastrous policy in the making?
Yeah, so this is the first time in the program that we're actually talking something that's grounded somewhere close to facts, not all of the nonsense that Mehdi was spewing out. And by the way, I'll answer the question, Piers, but by the way, Mehdi,
I quoted
let him speak, Mehdi.
Deal with the Smotrich quote.
No, you've been misrepresenting, cherry-picking.
No, don't talk over each other, Mehdi. Let Jonathan respond.
Cherry-picking anything.
Let him answer my question.
We conquer, cleanse, and remain in Gaza. No, that's the factual quote.
Right, please let him answer my question.
Which Netanyahu agreed with.
All right, Jonathan, answer my question, please.
I'll answer the question. So, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir is an excellent officer. He's the Chief of Staff of the IDF, and he's been leading the IDF with quite significant successes against Hezbollah, against the Iranians, and he is leading the IDF in our war, our very just war against Hamas. I'm very happy that there's a debate and that's an ongoing discussion between the military echelon and the democratically elected echelon in Israel. I'm not so happy that it's out in the open, but I am aware that it's happening. And I would say that what I read of the reported statements, which I have from pretty reliable sources they're more or less accurate, maybe not really the tone and the intensity, but a lot of it is accurate. What I read is that the military, very correctly, is asking of the government, what is the end state here? And government, please tell me what you intend for things to happen once we actually go in and fight Hamas and kill them in their tunnels and take out the remaining parts of the leadership and actually get the military part of the job done. And I think that's a very good point made by the IDF, because that is clarity that is needed. And until that is said and stipulated by the government, I think that it's good that the IDF, as a military in a democracy, is telling the elected democratic leadership that, well, I will execute the orders that you give me. Here are the consequences, and I wish for you to tell me what the desired strategic end state is. And that's exactly what a military is supposed to do in combat. And I think that now the ball is in the court of the government, where they will have to stipulate clearly.
So let's break down the strategy. When the IDF spokesman realised he couldn't win on the facts, he resorted to a vile personal smear, accusing Mehdi of being in the Hamas camp. But Mehdi's response was flawless. He didn't just get angry, he got to work. What followed was a multi-minute, surgical and absolutely brutal fact check that dismantled every single lie and talking point his opponent had just presented. This is what pushed Jonathan over the edge. And by the time we get to the meltdown that we saw in the previous video between these two that I posted yesterday, he had already been intellectually and morally defeated. The meltdown wasn't the start of the fight, it was the final pathetic gasp of a propagandist who had no facts left to stand on. So now that you've seen both parts, what do you think? Which takedown was more effective, the facts or the full-on fury yesterday? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this series, make sure you hit the like button for more. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.